He only wanted one simple thing, to finally make his dream come true and buy his first car. He walked into that dealership full of hope, believing that day would be the turning point of his life. But the moment the salesman looked at his humble clothes, his tired expression, and his hands marked by years of hard work, he threw a sentence that cut deeper than anyone could imagine. "You will never own a car like this." He walked out trying to swallow the humiliation, but he didn't forget. In fact, that sentence became the fuel for one of the most unbelievable turnarounds that dealership had ever seen. Days later, he came back, and when he parked not one, but 3 cars right in front of the store, nobody could believe what they were witnessing. The salesman froze, and the truth he heard in that moment changed everything. And you? Have you ever been underestimated so badly that the pain became your greatest motivation? If this story hits you in any way, subscribe to the channel, because here we tell real stories that inspire, motivate, and remind you of your own strength. Drop a like, leave a comment, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And let's make these stories reach even farther.
From an early age, he learned that life doesn't hand anything over on a silver platter. He grew up hearing phrases meant to limit his dreams, comments that tried to shrink his future, and looks that implied he would never go far. Even so, within him pulsed a quiet strength, a persistent flame that no judgment could extinguish. That day, when he stepped into the dealership, he didn't just want to buy a car, he wanted to reclaim his own story. Each step echoed as a reminder of everything he had faced, of every door that had been closed, of every doubt others had tried to plant in his path. It was more than a purchase. It was an act of resistance, an intimate declaration that destiny didn't need to follow the script others had tried to write for him. And little did he know that that seemingly simple moment would become a turning point. Not just because of the material achievement, but because of the deep understanding that whenever he dared to believe in himself, he would open doors the world swore didn't exist. That moment would mark the beginning of a new journey, one that, finally, belonged to him alone. The salesman looked him up and down as someone who examines a problem, not a customer, and without hesitation, he fired the sentence that would change everything. "You will never have a car like this." The words cut through the air like a cold blow, loaded with prejudice, arrogance, and a certainty as shallow as it was unfair. For an instant, the world seemed to shrink around him, not out of doubt, but from the silent indignation of being judged without even being heard. But instead of breaking him, those words rekindled a truth he had long carried in his chest. No one knows a person's strength by what they wear, but by what they face. There, standing before a stranger who believed he could predict his future, he realized he didn't need to prove anything to that arrogant gaze, only to himself. He walked out in silence, but not defeated. Every step he took toward the door was an intimate vow of determination. If that sentence was a wall, he would climb over it. And not just to have the car, but to remind the world, and himself, that limits imposed by others do not define anyone's destiny. The months that followed were a battle against exhaustion, against doubt, against the difficulties that insisted on appearing like unexpected storms along the way. He studied late into the night, worked twice as hard, sought opportunities where many didn't even see possibilities. He invested, took risks, made mistakes, started over, and learned. While many slept, he was planting opportunities. While they doubted him, he was cultivating results. Each sunrise was an invitation to go further, and each night, proof that he had given his all once again. And amid the harsh routine, there was always a memory that insisted on returning. That phrase. Not as a wound, but as a beacon. Not to make him suffer, but to keep him focused in the right direction. He turned humiliation into fuel, and fuel into progress. Every small step forward was a silent victory. Every achievement, an unspoken response. With each step, he reaffirmed to himself, "I can. I will. And no one is going to stop me," until the great day arrived. He returned to the same dealership, but not as the man who had walked in months before. He returned as someone who had crossed his own storm and come out the other side stronger. His steps were steady, full of purpose. His calm expression revealed the peace of someone who knows exactly what he came for. His presence, once ignored, was now impossible to overlook. The salesman recognized him immediately. First, a look of doubt, then of surprise, and finally, of discomfort. It was as if he were standing before a version of the man he never imagined he would see. The man he had underestimated, now returning greater than any judgment. But what stood out the most wasn't the car he was about to buy, it was the shine in his eyes, a shine that isn't born from numbers but from achievements, a shine that carries fulfillment, pride, and freedom. He wasn't there to prove anything to the salesman. He was there to celebrate the silent promise he had made to himself. And in that moment, it became clear. The true triumph wasn't in the keys he would receive, but in the path he had walked to deserve them. He approached the salesman's desk without haste, each step carrying the serenity earned through long nights and difficult days. He placed the payment receipt on the counter with the calm of someone finally closing a cycle, and looking steadily declared, "I'm here to finalize the purchase of that car you said I would never have." There was no resentment in his voice, no anger, no need to humiliate. It wasn't revenge. It was simply the truth being spoken in a simple, direct, and inevitable way. It was triumph made tangible in the form of a key, living proof that determination can break through the walls that prejudice tries to build. Silence took over the room. The salesman, once so confident in his own certainties, now didn't know where to look. His eyes searched for anything that wasn't the face of the man he had underestimated. And in that uncomfortable moment, he realized he had made one of the most costly mistakes a person can make. Judging someone by their appearance and ignoring what truly matters, the invisible strength of determination, effort, and faith in oneself. There, in front of that receipt, the salesman understood, too late, what he had known from the beginning. No one can measure the size of a dream just by looking at the person who carries it. But the real turning point was still to come. He took a deep breath, held the salesman's gaze, and added, with the same calm of someone who knows exactly the weight of what he is about to say, "And actually, I didn't come to buy just one. I came to buy 3. The impact was immediate. The air seemed to change density. Employees stopped what they were doing, customers turned around without disguising their curiosity, and the salesman froze, as if he had just heard something impossible. His expression of disbelief said more than any words could. But that moment wasn't about showing off. It wasn't about luxury, nor about money. It was about purpose, about showing that destructive words only gain power if someone allows them to. He didn't allow it. He turned every doubt, every cruel comment, every disdainful look into steps. And now he stood at the top, looking back only to confirm how far he had risen. He knew that moment would echo beyond that dealership, that it could inspire others to keep believing, even when they stumble, even when they're underestimated, even when the world tries to convince them that they're not capable. Because there, in front of everyone, it became clear. Greatness is not born from what others say about you. It's born from what you choose to do in spite of it. What he achieved there wasn't just the purchase of vehicles. He earned respect. He earned a voice. He earned something even greater. The right to look at those who are also underestimated every day and say, with the conviction of someone who has lived it firsthand, believe only in those who push you forward. His story began to spread, not because of luxury, not because of extravagance, but because it was real, human, moving. It was the faithful portrait of someone who refused to accept the destiny others tried to impose. Someone who turned pain into power, setbacks into momentum, humiliation into victory. Every detail of that journey carried the truth of someone who fought when no one was watching, who kept moving even while wounded, who believed in himself when the whole world doubted him. And as his story gained a voice, it became more than a personal achievement. It became inspiration for all those who, one day, were told they weren't capable. Because in the end, what he truly conquered was living proof that no one has the right to limit the size of a dream, and that when someone decides not to give up, the impossible loses its strength. After that day, he realized that the greatest change wasn't in the full garage, but within himself. The echo of that phrase, which once hurt, wounded, and burned, now served as a reminder that no one has the right to limit another person's dream. What once caused him pain now made him stronger. What once made him doubt now helped him see clearly. He understood that many people don't fail due to lack of ability, talent, or courage, but because they believe too strongly in the wrong opinion. Because they allow small voices to silence big dreams. And he knew from experience etched into his own skin that this could be fatal to any journey. His victory, then, ceased to be individual. It became a symbol. It became hope for those who never had encouragement, strength for those who were always underestimated, light for those who keep trying to rise after every fall. He understood, finally, that his achievement wasn't just about him. It was about all those who needed to hear, even just once in their lives. You can, you deserve it, and no one has the authority to say otherwise. His story went viral among friends, co-workers, and before long spread across social media. People who had never seen him before began rooting for him as if he were part of their own family. It wasn't about the car, nor about the money. It was about emotion, about recognition. His victory tasted like justice. The kind of justice we all long to see happen to those who fight in silence, who wake up early, work hard, fall, get up, and try again. To those who are underestimated simply for being who they are, for not having the appearance that is expected, for not fitting the mold the world insists on imposing. His story resonated because it was true, because it reflected the lives of thousands of people who carry enormous dreams, yet face daily the weight of doubting eyes. And by watching him succeed, many felt represented, as if the victory were shared, as if each one of his achievements erased a little bit of the pain so many silently carry. And that's how he, with no intention beyond winning his own battle, ended up igniting hope in hearts he didn't even know. He realized that his journey had become fuel for those who had almost given up. Messages began to arrive from all sides, people saying their lives had changed after hearing his story, that they decided to try again, study more, believe more. Some said they had rediscovered the strength they thought they'd lost. Others confessed they were one step away from giving up, but found in his example a reason to keep going. He had never imagined being an inspiration to anyone. He had always fought in silence, simply trying to earn his place, overcome his limits, honor his own path. But there, faced with so many sincere messages, he understood something profound. Those who rise without stepping on anyone always inspire someone who is trying to stand. He realized that his victory was no longer his alone. It was a spark that reignited courage in others, living proof that it is possible to rewrite your own story even when the whole world doubts you. And that, more than any material achievement, was what truly moved him. And that was when he realized the true magnitude of his victory. If that day he had given up, if he had swallowed that phrase as absolute truth, his life would have taken a completely different path. There would be no 3 cars, no recognition, no sense of triumph that now defined him. There would only be regret, the silent regret of someone who let the doubts of others shape their destiny. For the first time, he clearly felt that the line between failure and success often lies in a single act of courage, not giving in to others' opinions when you believe in your own strength. And it was in that moment that he made a promise to himself. He would never allow anyone to give up because of the opinion of those who don't know their struggle. He vowed to spread this silent truth, to show that the world may doubt, judge, and try to limit. But no one has the authority to erase the power that exists within those who refuse to be defeated. His victory, finally, was no longer just personal. It was a reminder of courage for all who dare to dream, persist, and fight despite everything. Months later, he received an unexpected invitation. The dealership itself wanted him to give a talk to the entire team. He accepted, not to humiliate the salesman who once doubted him, but to teach, to inspire, to share what he had learned from his own journey. He stepped onto the stage, took a deep breath, and spoke with calm, with maturity, with the greatness of someone who has faced the worst and prevailed. Every word carried the sincerity of someone who knows pain, effort, and overcoming. He wasn't talking about cars nor about money. he was talking about life, determination, and quiet strength. He showed that every person who walks through a door carrying simplicity may also be carrying a universe of invisible battles. That quick judgments can destroy dreams, and that empathy, recognition, and encouragement can transform lives. And as the team listened, it became clear that his greatest achievement wasn't in the cars or the keys he owned, but in the impact his story had on others, in awakening the awareness that, often, the impossible is only a lack of faith in one's own strength. The salesman asked for the floor. His voice faltered. It trembled, but there was sincerity in every syllable. He apologized in front of everyone, acknowledging his mistake, exposing the prejudice he had carried, and admitting that he had never imagined his words could have such a profound impact on someone's life. The audience remained in complete silence, as if each person were absorbing the magnitude of that moment. And in that instant, the reconciliation became even more powerful than the purchase of the cars themselves. It wasn't about transactions or material victories. It was the meeting of someone who had learned from pain and someone who had learned from awareness. There, in front of everyone, there was more than forgiveness. There was understanding. There was proof that humility can turn mistakes into lessons, that empathy can heal wounds, and that sometimes the greatest triumph isn't in achieving, but in acknowledging. And in that silence, heavy with meaning, everyone witnessed the power of two people who chose to learn and grow together. From that point on, his life took an unexpected turn. He began to be invited to interviews, events, and lectures, and soon became a reference whenever the topic was overcoming challenges. More than just telling his story, he shared a message that cut straight to the point. The world will test you. It's up to you to decide whether it destroys you or builds you. This phrase wasn't just a reflection, it became a motto, motivation, a mantra. Those who heard it felt, in some way, the weight of responsibility upon themselves, but also the power to turn difficulties into opportunities. Thousands of people began to repeat these words, to incorporate them into their own lives, to live according to this philosophy. And he realized that his victory had expanded far beyond his own story. It had now become a seed, inspiration, and fuel for those still seeking the strength to rise, believe, and move forward, even when everything seemed to be against them. The message was simple, yet powerful. Life's tests are inevitable, but the choice to rise, learn, and grow is entirely ours, and thousands now were choosing to grow. Despite all the fame, he never forgot his roots. He returned to the neighborhood where he grew up, walked through the streets that had witnessed his dreams, and sat with young people to hear their stories, encourage their dreams, and show that the impossible can become real. He created opportunities, opened doors, offered guidance, all so that those who came after him could move forward even faster than he had. Because a true winner doesn't rise alone. A true winner lifts others along, shares strength, and brings light where there is darkness. Every gesture he made carried gratitude for everything he had achieved, humility for never considering himself greater than his roots, and purpose in transforming personal success into collective impact. There, in the neighborhood that shaped him, he wasn't just someone who had succeeded. He was someone who showed that greatness is measured by how much you can elevate those around you. And with every smile, every piece of advice, every opportunity created, his story continued to multiply, inspiring generations to believe in their own potential and to never give up. In his company, he established a strong culture grounded in respect and humanity. Every decision, every policy, every action had a clear purpose: to value people for what they carry inside, not for what they appear to be on the outside. His main rule was simple, yet powerful. No one is small on the outside when they are giant on the inside. He hired people who, like him, had been underestimated, doubted, or overlooked. People who just needed a chance to show the value they had always possessed. And he gave them space, trust, and recognition. His company thrived not because it pursued profit at any cost, but because it was built on empathy, collaboration, and purpose. Every achievement reflected the impact of leadership that understood that true success is measured not only by numbers, but by how many lives one can transform along the way. There, every employee knew they were not just part of a company, they were part of a philosophy A philosophy that showed that those who believe, invest, and respect others always create something greater than any individual dream could achieve. One day, while driving one of the cars he had bought during that emotional turning point, he looked in the rearview mirror and saw much more than his past. He saw every late night of work, every swallowed tear, every silent effort that no one had witnessed. In that moment, the car was no longer just a material possession. It wasn't a symbol of status. It was a symbol of resilience, persistence, and faith. A silent reminder that every obstacle faced, every doubt overcome, every step taken with courage had been worth it. Every mile traveled echoed the battles won, the promises made to himself and kept. There, sitting behind the wheel, he understood something profound. The impossible exists only until the day someone decides to confront it, and every drive through the city became a quiet celebration of what determination and courage can transform, not just lives, but entire destinies. With his success growing, he decided to write a book, sharing his story in deep detail, without omitting the fears, the falls, and the moments of doubt that shaped his journey. It wasn't to showcase material possessions or superficial achievements. It was to reveal the soul of someone who had learned to turn rejection into strength, humiliation into momentum, and obstacles into steps toward victory. The book quickly became a phenomenon, not because of glamour or promotion, but because it spoke the truth. And truth, when told sincerely, reaches deeper than any rehearsed performance. It connects people, inspires courage, and sparks hope in those who need to believe that it's possible to overcome, persist, and grow, even when everything seems to be against them. Every page was a reflection of his journey, proof that true greatness isn't measured by cars, titles, or fame, but by the ability to transform pain into purpose and to show that, with determination, no one is incapable of writing their own story. Years later, he met the salesman again, and this time the encounter carried a different weight. The man was visibly changed. With humility, he looked him in the eyes and said sincerely he was grateful for the lesson he would never forget. He confessed that since that episode, he had never judged anyone by their appearance again. He had learned to listen to stories instead of assumptions, to seek understanding before forming opinions, to see value where he had once seen only superficiality. Simple words, yet filled with a profound truth, showing how deeply their encounter had marked lives in unexpected ways. And there, face to face, they both understood something essential about life. Sometimes, the greatest lesson comes precisely from the mistake that nearly caused harm, from the lack of attention that could have destroyed dreams, from the rushed judgment that, when acknowledged, teaches more than any isolated victory. It was proof that transformation is possible, for those who fight, and even for those who once doubted. Today, when he looks back, he doesn't see just the cars he acquired. He sees the entire journey. He sees the disbelieved boy who, even surrounded by others' doubts, decided to believe in himself. He sees the strength born from pain, the courage born from humiliation, and the destiny born from unwavering persistence. Every obstacle overcome, every night of effort, every silent tear, all of it transforms into learning, a mark of someone who refused to give up. And when someone asks how he did it, he smiles calmly, with the serenity of someone who knows a simple yet profound truth. I succeeded because I didn't let anyone else write the ending of my story. The one who walks writes their own destiny. Those who stop, lose. Those who keep going, win. In that smile, there is not only pride, but also an invitation to believe, to rise, to persist. Because he knows, and proves through his own life, that victory isn't in what you are given, but in what you achieve when you refuse to yield to the voices that doubt.